as we have been reporting, online sales in the United States have been hitting new records this Thanksgiving weekend and on into Cyber Monday. But major toy makers are not so sure about their overall holiday sales. Both Hasbro and Mattel cut their sales outlooks for the fourth quarter, predicting consumers will watch their wallets. Mattel is warning of sales headwinds during the holidays. Toy executives say inflation has people prioritizing food over toys. The CEO of one toy maker, MGA Entertainment, is expecting worldwide toy sales to drop by 8 to 10% compared to just last year. Well, that's why this holiday season, toy makers are pinning their hopes on another demographic in particular, which does have deep pockets. They are known as Kidults. These big kids hold a strong nostalgia for toys, games, and activities from when they were younger. And these people are willing to spend money for the blast from the past. Isabella Diaz has more on those who are still a kid at heart.
The holiday season is usually synonymous with toy season. Kids and preteens filling their wish lists with everything from board games and Barbies to video games and Legos. But toy manufacturers don't just care what kids are asking Santa for this year. The companies want mom and dad to have a toy of their own too.
We're going to be seeing, the Kidult toys and games, not just for kids, but for adults as well, whether it's board games or puzzles or, fan collectibles based on some really cool fandoms.
And there's a good reason behind the marketing push for Kidult toys. A survey commissioned by toy company MGA Entertainment found 67% of millennials and Gen Zers in the U.S. were willing to buy a replica of their favorite childhood toy. And 65% said they could now afford to purchase the toy or game their parents wouldn't or couldn't buy them as a kid.
Furby had beautiful dream.
And that's not just the trend in the U.S. Consumer advisor company Circana found the Kidult industry was valued at roughly $5 billion across the UK, France, Germany, Italy, and Spain in 2022. And while toy sales for children in the region actually declined by $218 million, sales for Kidults increased by almost $1.1 billion from 2019 to 2022 alone.
The Kidult space is now accounting for almost 30% share of the overall toy market as well.
And some of the biggest toy stores and game manufacturers are tapping into the nostalgia. British toy retailer Hamleys unveiled its top 10 toys for Christmas back in September, featuring Kidult favorites including a remote control car and plush Squishmallows.
18 to 24 and that Gen Z demographic are really buying into this brand. So you can have a Squishmallow if you're 5 years old. You can have a Squishmallow, if you're way into adulthood.
And Mattel is marketing Barbie, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and even the beloved 90s boy band NSYNC. The only thing left now is for everyone's favorite jolly old soul to get hip to the trend. But it seems he may know all about it already. Isabella Diaz, CGTN.
And his elves. Okay, to talk more about adults buying toys for themselves and what that means for the industry, we are now joined by James Zahn. He is a senior editor at the Toy Insider and the editor-in-chief at the Toy Book. Thanks so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. I was kind of excited about this one. Firstly, okay, spell it out for us. The difference between a traditional toy from a Kidult toy.
Good evening. Great to be here. And I think listening to that last bit, I think Santa is hip to what's going on here. The difference between a kid toy and a Kidult toy can be many different things. The bottom line is it has to be something that adults are willing to spend their own money on for themselves. And this is a trend that has been around for a little while, where essentially the adult collector has existed forever. There were Hot Wheels and Barbie collectors and people that were into farm toys and vintage artifacts from the 50s and 60s. Well, those were old toys that people were rebuying because they actually existed then. Now the toy makers are starting to tap back into that, and they're making new things geared toward a grown-up audience. So something that would be a Kidult toy right now would be this Lego wildflower bouquet, where people can sit down and build their own bouquet. It's very therapeutic, like model building.
How many pieces
Another
does that thing
example,
have?
this one right here has 939 pieces, but Lego goes up from there. They have sets in the thousands
Wow.
of pieces. And then gaming. Monopoly, we know this for decades. Well, they partnered with Panini this year and they made Monopoly Prism. This brings the NBA into it with trading cards. So instead of trading properties, you're actually drafting and trading players. So there's a lot of different takes, including straight up reproductions of the old stuff. So here I have, this is from Playmates Toys.
Right.
This is a reproduction of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles villain Shredder. This is just like the one that was sold in the late 80s, early 90s.
So these aren't collectibles. These are for these are for kids to get out and play with? Or kids, I say. Kidults to get out and play with.
They are definitely for the adults to play with, but on the collectible note, anything can be a collectible. So that Ninja Turtles that I held up here, this could be a collectible and stay in its package forever, stay on the shelf, or somebody could open it up, set up a diorama. I've got some other examples next to me here. Sectors from Nacelle, that was an 80s brand that's back. Masters of the Universe from Mattel, that's back, and that looks like the old ones. But then there's this new school play again, where Educational Insights, for example, has Canoodle.
Hold that up a little higher. Hold that up just higher. There we go.
This is a game. It's a puzzle game with 200 different ways you can do this. But this game, even though it's designed for kids ages 7 and up, went viral on TikTok. So now you have teens that want to play it, but the other audience beyond kidults, seniors, they're really getting into this because it challenges the mind and it's also about dexterity. So it falls into yet another growing category that some are calling eldertainment.
You know, I think a lot of people may be surprised to learn that kids toy sales are down this year. So how does that compare with adults? I mean, this is obviously a new market, but is it helping the bottom line?
It is, and it's not really a new market. It's more of a market that's always existed, but it's never been properly tracked. That was one key distinction here. And for example, in our archives at the Toy Book, because the magazine's been around since 1984, it's a trade publication, we found an article from 1986 where a rep from Mattel was touting that they believed that there were 3,000 adult Barbie collectors in the U.S. Well, now that number has gone out. I mean, it's exploded because Barbie is having a moment. But what's happening now is the past few years, if you look at toy sales in 2023 versus pre-pandemic 2019, they're actually still up for kids. What really happened is skewed numbers. The pandemic, everybody was staying at home. That's when a lot of adults started reconnecting with their own childhood, started buying things. Of course, those same adults were buying more for their kids. So you ended up with 2020, 2021, very skewed, inflated numbers. And it started to downslide last holiday season. So they're facing tough comps. But this adult business has always been there, just has a buzzy name. But even the name isn't a new thing. The Hong Kong Toys and Games Fair launched a Kidult Pavilion way back in 2013.
Wow. Okay. To me, this is interesting. How does the fact that more people are choosing not to have children or become parents at a much later age, how is that impacting the toy industry?
It certainly shows some decline, and where you start to see that is actually in the infant and toddler space. If you really dissect some of the publicly traded toy companies that are out there that have divisions that focus on that infant, toddler, preschool space, you can start to see those declines. And that's something, too, that dates back decades, where anytime there's a drop in the overall birth rate, you can see that reflected in toys over the next couple of years, but then it typically rebounds.
Gen Alpha, the name given to people born after 2010 and thereafter, they are at the oldest 13. They want skincare products this year, noble that they have, but they have a lot of spending power. So that news can't be great for the toy sector if they're looking at things like that.
There's a way to adapt, and funny enough, I actually have one of those kids in my own house. And technically, I got two that are 11 and 14, so they're straddling that Gen Alpha thing. What a lot of independent toy stores are starting to do is offer beauty bars in their stores where they have like cosmetics, bath bombs, even toys you can play with that tap into that. And there's companies that are zeroing in on that. Make It Real, Crazy Art, Fashion Angels, Horizon Group, they all make toys that actually involve beauty, things like nail care, skin care, makeup, all of that. So there's a way to tap into that audience that used to kind of go away between, say, ages 12 and 14. They were too cool for toys. Well, now there's ways to bring them back in and keep that foot traffic moving. So it's developing.
Good stuff, James. I want to see, the one toy I didn't get that I always wanted was the G.I. Joe space capsule from the 60s, 70s, but that's for another time. Our thanks to James Zahn, the senior editor at the Toy Insider and editor-in-chief at the Toy Book. Thanks a lot. I enjoyed this.
Thank you.